My brother and I had very different childhoods. We were raised by the same parents in the same home, but we have very different memories of our upbringing. So whenever my brother's wife or someone in her family asks me something about our childhood, I defer to my brother. If they ask me anything that would require me to speak from memory about my childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood, I tell them, "Oh, I can't answer that. You'll need to ask brother's name." If I say anything that contradicts my brother's memories, it'll cause a huge fight, so I stay out of it by deferring to my brother. Usually conversations don't center on our upbringing, so it doesn't come up. A few months ago, I was having dinner with my parents, my brother, his wife, and her sister. At one point, my mother asked my sister-in-law's sister if she wanted to have kids. She said she did, eventually. My mother praised the response and said she was glad to hear a normal response instead of having a daughter like me who doesn't want kids. That's been a huge sticking point for my mother since I was very young, so it's normal for her to complain about it. But this time she went on, even pretending to cry over how sad it was that I didn't want kids. After a few minutes of this, I said, without forethought, "Even if I had kids, you'd never meet them, so I don't know why you're so concerned about it anyway." I have my reasons for this, but my parents and brother deny any of it happened. My brother's wife is 7 months pregnant with their first child. Understandably, she was very concerned about why I wouldn't allow my parents to meet my hypothetical children. I didn't want to speak from memory about my upbringing because my memories differ from those of my brother and our parents. I would be dismissed as a liar when sharing my honest memories. So I told my sister-in-law to ask my brother. I thought my sister-in-law would forget about it, but she actually asked later. Apparently, my brother told her, "Our mother never liked Rarely for whatever reason, but our children will probably be fine." My sister-in-law didn't find this very reassuring, so she kept pressing my brother. My brother told his wife about the incident where he fell into a public pool. I jumped in after him, and our mother screamed at me for pushing him into the pool, then gave me the silent treatment for days. He told her that our mother stole his socks and put them in my room, so our mother could accuse me of stealing the socks and scream at me for it. He told her about how I'd have to eat at a separate table so my mother could have one-on-one meals with my brother. He told her that I was always in trouble at home, but never at school. My sister-in-law asked me if all of this was true, and I was like, yes, but brother's name always said he didn't remember any of it. My sister-in-law asked me where our father was in all of this, and I said he was either working or in front of the TV. Incidents like these happened almost every day. It turns out my brother remembers almost everything that I remember, but he didn't want our parents to know that he remembers. My sister-in-law got it all out of him when they were back home. Now for an update. Since then, my sister-in-law has been saying that she doesn't want their children to be alone with our parents. She said it's fine if our parents visit, as long as she's in the room. My brother is obviously blaming me for his wife's reasonable decision, and he said our parents will be furious with me when they find out that they won't be able to be alone with their grandchildren. I was like, okay, but they've always been furious with me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but your brother is, he told his wife. You've actively hidden for years how you were treated. Him blaming you for his wife wanting to protect their kids is just more evidence of him being a jerk. He really isn't much better than your parents for condoning their antics, because if he's not calling them out now, and he never did back then, that's condoning abuse. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Next time just add a, wait until they learn who told her because it sure as frick wasn't me. By the way, your brother is the jerk for denying the reality so hard that you literally can't talk about your childhood when he remembered it clearly. But they would never do it to my kids. For frick's sake, he even says probably. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. So after my sister-in-law decided that our parents couldn't be alone with their future grandkids, things got really tense. My brother was furious, and he made it clear that he blamed me for the whole situation. He said I had poisoned his wife's mind against our parents. I tried to explain that I didn't do anything. She just asked questions, and I answered them honestly. But he wasn't having any of it. A week after that, my parents invited us all over for dinner again. I was dreading it, but I went because I didn't want to make things worse. The dinner started off okay, but it didn't take long for the topic of my sister-in-law's pregnancy to come up. My mom was going on about how excited she was to be a grandmother, and how she couldn't wait to babysit. My sister-in-law looked really uncomfortable, and I could tell she was trying to figure out how to respond without causing a scene. Eventually, she just blurted out, "Actually, we were thinking it might be best if you only visit when we're around." The room went dead silent. My mom looked like she'd been slapped, and my dad just stared at his plate. My brother shot me a look that could unalive. My mom started crying, saying she didn't understand why she was being punished, and that she had always been a good mother. My sister-in-law tried to explain that it wasn't about punishment, but about making sure everyone felt comfortable and safe. My mom wasn't having it. She accused my sister-in-law of trying to turn my brother against her and said she was being manipulated by me. After that dinner, my brother stopped talking to me altogether. He wouldn't answer my calls or texts, and when I tried to visit, he wouldn't open the door. I felt really isolated and started questioning if I had done the right thing by being honest. But then, something unexpected happened. My dad called me. He never calls me. He asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. When we met, he looked really tired. He said he wanted to understand why I felt the way I did about our parents. I was hesitant at first, but then I just laid it all out. I told him about all the things Mom did to me growing up, how she always favored my brother, and how it made me feel like I was never good enough. He listened quietly, and for the first time, he didn't try to defend her. He just nodded and said, "I didn't know it was that bad." He admitted that he had always been more focused on work, and that he hadn't been around as much as he should have been. He said he was sorry for not being there for me and for not seeing what was going on. It was a small step, but it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't forgive him right away, but it was a start. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law was dealing with her own set of problems. Her family started asking questions about why she was setting these boundaries with my parents. She didn't want to throw me under the bus, so she tried to keep things vague. But her sister, the one who was at that dinner, wasn't satisfied with vague answers. She kept pressing until my sister-in-law finally broke down and told her everything. Her sister was shocked and said she had no idea things were that bad. She promised to support her, but she also said she needed to talk to my brother to get his side of the story. When my sister-in-law told my brother about this, he was livid. He felt like his entire life was being scrutinized and judged. He accused her of betraying him and airing their dirty laundry. They had a huge fight, and for a while it looked like their marriage might not survive. But then, something changed. My brother started going to therapy. I think he realized that he couldn't keep running from the past and that he needed to deal with his own issues if he wanted to have a healthy relationship with his wife and future kids. During one of his therapy sessions, he had a breakthrough. He realized that he had been protecting our parents because he didn't want to face the reality of our childhood. He didn't want to admit that the people who were supposed to love and protect us had failed so miserably. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it was the first step towards healing. As for me, I started seeing a therapist too. I realized that I had a lot of unresolved anger and hurt that I needed to work through. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I started to understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault and that I didn't have to carry that burden anymore. My sister-in-law gave birth to a healthy baby boy a few weeks ago. My parents were allowed to visit, but only with my brother and sister-in-law present. It was awkward, but it was a start. My mom tried to act like everything was fine, but I could tell she was still hurt and confused. My dad was more subdued, but he seemed to be making an effort to understand and respect the boundaries that had been set. In the end, things are still complicated, but there's a sense of progress. My brother and I are talking again, albeit cautiously. My parents are trying to navigate this new reality, and my sister-in-law is doing her best to keep the peace while protecting her family. It's not perfect, but it's real, and for now, that's enough. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to let my sister-in-law borrow my custom dress and causing family drama? So I, 24-year-old female, recently bought a gorgeous fitted dress that I've been saving up for months. It's tailored for my measurements and is in the style of a lady-in-waiting dress from the early 1530s. It's a beautiful piece made specifically for a Renaissance fair that I'm attending soon. I spent $2,500 on it plus all the accessories. I've been looking forward to this event for ages and plan to wear this dress for the event. Enter my sister-in-law, Emma, 29-year-old female. Emma and I have always had a somewhat strained relationship. She tends to be a bit demanding and has always had a sense of entitlement, but I've tried to keep the peace for the sake of my brother and family harmony. A few days ago, Emma came over for dinner, saw the dress hanging in my room when she went to the bathroom. My door was open and immediately fell in love with it. Emma is quite a bit taller and heavier than I am, 4'11" and 110 pounds to 5'9" and 200 pounds, so the dress wouldn't fit her properly without significant alterations. She asked if she could borrow it for a party she's attending next weekend because the theme is historical figures, and she planned to go as Anne Boleyn. I politely declined, explaining that I had saved up for it and was planning to wear it to my own event, and that the dress was more of a lady-in-waiting dress than a queen's dress. Emma didn't take this well. She started insisting that she needed it more than I did, that she had nothing else to wear, and that it would be selfish of me not to let her borrow it because I have other dresses I can wear. I do own other dresses I have worn to Renaissance fairs before, but this is the first time I've had enough money to get a custom-made dress instead of sewing it myself out of thrifted items. I stood my ground, saying that while I understood her situation, I wasn't comfortable lending out something so expensive and personal, especially since it wouldn't even fit her correctly. Things escalated quickly. Emma got upset and accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate, even saying I was calling her fat because I didn't think it would fit. My brother tried to mediate but ended up siding with Emma, saying that it wouldn't hurt to lend it just this once and she could make it work. This made me even more upset, and I might have said some things in the heat of the moment that I now regret, that even the tightest corset wouldn't let her fit into my dress, and that even if the waist, hip, and bust did fit, she would be dressed more like a prostitute of the era because her calves would be visible. I also told her it was likely she would tear or rip the fabric while trying to wear it. In the end, I told Emma that she was acting entitled, and that just because she wanted something didn't mean she automatically deserved it. Emma stormed out crying, and now my brother is mad at me too. My parents think I should have just lent her the dress to keep the peace, but I feel like I have the right to set boundaries and not be pressured into giving up something important to me, especially something that would likely be damaged or altered significantly. Even if it was just a dress, am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Are all of your family complete morons? How do they think a dress made for someone who is 4 feet 11 inches is going to fit someone almost a foot taller than you? I would honestly ask them how they expect your dress to fit someone 10 inches taller. Weight doesn't even need to come into the conversation. Plus, no is a complete sentence. Don't let your sister-in-law or brother into your house anytime soon. Either one might damage your dress because they're so stupidly petty. Comment 2, not the idiot. Your sister-in-law sounds like a freaking nightmare to be around. You are totally within your rights to say no. That is a very expensive dress. With as bad of an entitled attitude she has, I would rather show up at her house and burn the dress in her front yard rather than lend it to her. Your brother was just trying to stand by his wife, but in this, he is in the wrong as well. Tell him to fork over $2,000 so his wife can have a dress made in her size. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, after the whole dress incident with Emma, things have been pretty tense around here. A few days after Emma stormed out, my brother called me. He was still upset and said that Emma was really hurt by my comments. He asked if I could apologize to her. I told him I was sorry for the way things escalated, but stood by my decision not to lend her the dress. He didn't seem satisfied with that and hung up rather abruptly. The next day, my mom called and suggested we all get together to talk things out. She thought it would be a good idea to have a family dinner to clear the air. I reluctantly agreed, hoping it might help smooth things over. When we all sat down for dinner, it was awkward at first. Emma wouldn't look at me, and my brother was giving me the cold shoulder. My mom tried to break the ice by talking about unrelated things, but it was clear everyone was still on edge. Eventually, the conversation turned to the dress. Emma said she felt humiliated by my comments, and that she just wanted to borrow it because she thought it was beautiful. I apologized for the harsh words, but reiterated that the dress was important to me, and I didn't want to risk it getting damaged. My brother chimed in, saying that family should come first, and that I should have been more understanding. I felt cornered and frustrated, but I tried to stay calm. I told them that while I value family, I also have the right to set boundaries and protect my belongings. After dinner, my dad pulled me aside and said he understood where I was coming from, but thought I could have handled it better. He suggested I try to find a compromise. I thought about it and decided to offer Emma one of my other dresses that I had worn to previous Renaissance fairs. It wasn't custom-made, but it was still nice and fit the historical theme. I called Emma and made the offer, but she declined, saying it wasn't the same. A few days later, I found out that Emma had gone ahead and bought a dress for her party. It wasn't as elaborate as mine, but it seemed to make her happy. I thought things might start to settle down, but then I noticed my brother was still distant. He barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was short and curt. I couldn't understand why he was still so upset, especially since Emma had found a solution. Then last weekend, I went to visit my parents. While I was there, my mom mentioned that Emma had been talking to my brother about how I always seem to get what I want, and that I never consider other people's feelings. This really hurt because I've always tried to be considerate, even if Emma and I don't always see eye to eye. I started to wonder if there was more to this than just the dress. I decided to talk to my brother directly. I went over to his place and asked if we could have a heart-to-heart. He seemed reluctant, but agreed. I told him I felt like there was something deeper going on and that I wanted to understand why he was so upset. He finally opened up and said that he felt like I was always the golden child in the family, and that Emma often felt overshadowed. He said that this dress incident was just the tipping point for a lot of built-up resentment. This was a revelation for me. I had no idea they felt this way. I tried to explain that I never intended to overshadow anyone and that I was just passionate about my interests. We talked for a while, and I think we both started to understand each other a bit better. I apologized for any unintentional hurt I may have caused and promised to be more mindful in the future. As for Emma, I decided to reach out to her one more time. I invited her to coffee so we could talk without any family around. She agreed, and we met up at a local cafe. I told her about my conversation with my brother and how I wanted to make things right. She admitted that she often felt like an outsider in the family, and that the dress incident made her feel even more excluded. I apologized again, and told her I valued her as part of the family. We talked for a while and started to find some common ground. In the end, I think this whole situation has brought some underlying issues to the surface. It's going to take time to rebuild trust and improve our relationships, but I feel like we're on the right path. My brother and I are talking more openly now, and Emma and I are making an effort to understand each other better. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my brother and his wife to change their baby's name because it was too painful for me? Hi Reddit, I tried to write this story in as much detail as possible, but every time I try to write, I can't help but cry. I decided to condense the situation. I, a 32-year-old female, lost my daughter Iris 3 years ago. She was only 5 years old and passed away from a rare illness. My husband and I were devastated, and we've been trying to heal ever since. Iris was our only child, and we haven't had any more children since her passing. My brother, a 30-year-old male, and his wife, a 28-year-old female, are expecting their first child, a girl, and they recently announced that they plan to name her Iris. When they told me, I was shocked and felt a wave of emotions. I told them I wasn't comfortable with it, and that it felt like they were trying to replace my Iris. Iris was our rainbow baby since I suffer with fertility issues. We chose the name because Iris is the Greek goddess of rainbows. That might be silly to other people, but it means the world to me and my husband. My sister-in-law got really upset and said that they've always loved the name and that it's a way to honor my daughter. My brother backed her up, saying that I should be touched by the gesture and that it's their right to name their child whatever they want. I understand that they can name their baby anything, but it feels too soon and too painful for me. I asked them to choose another name, but now my family is divided. My parents think I'm being unreasonable and that I should be grateful for the tribute, while pretty much everyone else thinks it's insensitive of my brother and sister-in-law. I love my brother and his wife, and they were our rocks during the loss. But they are also aware of how much that name meant to us, and how long it took us to figure out a name that summed our baby girl up perfectly. She wasn't just a rainbow baby, she was our rainbow. She brought the color back into our life. I would really like to know how other people would have reacted if they were in a similar situation, and also advice on what to do next if you don't mind. Am I the jerk? Now for an update. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for their kind words and the people who reached out to me privately. I have read every single message received under this post, and the majority are filled with love, which really touched my heart. People have suggested compromising by asking them to use her name as a middle name instead. At first, I wasn't sure, so my husband and I sat down and had a long conversation about it. We have invited them over for dinner tomorrow, to which they agreed. We ultimately decided that if they choose Iris as their baby girl's middle name, we would be very honored. Instead of it feeling like a replacement to us, it would feel like a piece of our baby will always be intertwined with theirs, and that's so beautiful to us. If they truly want to honor our family, they will agree to this compromise. If not, we have decided to distance ourselves from them for the foreseeable future. I will be back with a major update later this week. Once again, thank you for your support. It has truly healed something inside of me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I would have reacted similarly. It feels like erasure. I would ask them if you are okay with this solution, to consider using Iris as a middle name instead, in order to honor your daughter. If they couldn't do that, I don't know how I would feel about associating with them. It's very disrespectful to you to move forward at that point. They can't force you to feel honored about this. It's incredibly inappropriate. Not the idiot, obviously, and I am so sorry for your loss. Comment 2. My brother backed her up and said I should be touched by the gesture. Tell him he has never been in your shoes, can't possibly understand what you went through, and has zero right to tell you how he thinks you should feel. Not the idiot. But at the end of the day, you can't really stop them. All you can do is decide if this is worth cutting them off over. If it were me, I think I would at the very least, until I had enough distance and healing. Now, for the update. Hi everyone, thanks for your patience and support. So the dinner happened, and it was a mix of emotions. My brother and his wife came over, and we had a heartfelt conversation. We explained our feelings and the compromise we were willing to make. They listened, and I could see the conflict in their eyes. They genuinely believed naming their daughter Iris was a tribute, but they also understood our pain. After a lot of back and forth, they agreed to use Iris as a middle name. It felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of peace. But then, something unexpected happened. A week after our dinner, my brother called me, sounding distressed. He said they had been thinking a lot about our conversation and realized that even using Iris as a middle name might still be too painful for us. They decided to choose a completely different name for their daughter. I was taken aback by their empathy and willingness to put our feelings first. It was a moment of genuine connection and understanding between us. However, this decision didn't sit well with everyone. My parents were furious when they found out. They felt that my brother and his wife were being too accommodating, and that I was being overly sensitive. This led to a huge family argument, with my parents accusing me of manipulating my brother. It was heartbreaking to see my family so divided over this issue. In the midst of all this, my husband and I had to navigate our own emotions. We were grateful for my brother's decision, but the family tension was taking a toll on us. We decided to take a step back and focus on our healing. We started attending a support group for parents who have lost children, and it has been incredibly helpful. Sharing our story and hearing others' experiences has given us a sense of community and understanding. During one of these support group meetings, we met a couple who had gone through a similar situation. They lost their son and faced a similar dilemma when their relatives wanted to name their child after him. Hearing their story and how they navigated the situation gave us a new perspective. It made us realize that while names hold significant emotional value, the love and memories we have for our daughter are what truly matter. Meanwhile, my brother and his wife welcomed their baby girl into the world. They named her Lily, a name that still holds a special meaning for them but doesn't carry the same emotional weight for us. When we visited them at the hospital, holding Lily for the first time was a bittersweet moment. It reminded us of our own loss, but it also brought a sense of hope and new beginnings. As we spent more time with Lily, we noticed something beautiful. She had a calm and gentle demeanor, much like our Iris. It felt like a part of our daughter was still with us, watching over her cousin. This realization brought a sense of closure and healing that we didn't expect. But before I get into that, there's something else I need to share. During this time, my husband and I had been considering trying for another child. It was a difficult decision, given our past struggles with fertility and the fear of facing another loss. However, the experience with my brother's baby made us realize that we were ready to open our hearts again. We decided to consult with a fertility specialist to explore our options. The process was emotionally and physically draining, but we were determined. After several weeks of tests and treatments, we received the news we had been hoping for. I was pregnant. The joy and fear we felt were overwhelming, but we knew we had the strength to face whatever came our way. As we shared the news with our family, the reactions were mixed. My parents were ecstatic, seeing it as a sign of healing and moving forward. My brother and his wife were supportive and excited for us. The family tension started to ease, and we began to rebuild our relationships. Throughout my pregnancy, I found myself reflecting on the past few months. The journey had been filled with ups and downs, but it had also brought us closer as a family. We learned the importance of empathy, understanding, and compromise. It wasn't an easy road, but it was one that led to growth and healing. As I write this, I'm in my second trimester, and things are going well. We still have a long way to go, but we're taking it one day at a time. The experience with my brother and his wife taught us that while names and traditions hold value, it's the love and support we give each other that truly matters. Thank you for reading and for being a part of our journey. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!